Dom has finally made his choice. He's finally picked Rhea Ripley. He got a lick on the face for it as well, and he told that Liv Morgan, I hate you. He is 100% turning heel at SummerSlam and is siding with Liv Morgan. I can't say he's turning heel. He's already a heel, I guess. But he is 100% siding with Liv Morgan at SummerSlam now.
Do you think? He specifically?
Well, let's get into it, shall
we?
I'm Luke Owen, DAD. This is Dan Layton, and welcome to the WrestleTalk podcast review of Monday Night Raw. Please do press that subscribe button and give us a little thumbs up as well. I really feel like I cannot enunciate subscribe button anymore, even though I've been doing this for like 8 years.
Yeah, it's a hard word to say.
Leave a comment down below if you're watching us on demand with what you thought of this episode of Monday Night Raw and this storyline in general. And if you're watching live, then please do join the SWAF Nation. Join in the live conversation. Let us know your thoughts. And if you want those thoughts read out on the air, WrestleTalk.com/support is the link to click. So, shall we talk about this opening segment?
No, I don't want to talk about Raw at all. In fact, this week I'd like to talk... Can you imagine if I just hijacked the show and talked about anything else?
What would you want to talk about? What's your jam at the moment that isn't wrestling related?
The Olympics.
Yeah?
I keep thinking about the Olympics.
Are they on?
Well, they're on in this is the thing, is they start in 3 days' time, but you
Do
barely
they really?
see you've seen no marketing about it. It's because Discovery WBD bought the rights to the Olympics coverage in Europe, and so now it's taken off terrestrial TV. And
no, was there no coverage on the BBC?
Well, no, we have a law that says in the UK you have to put a certain amount of coverage on mainstream television, but they're limited in what they're allowed to do, and obviously because they're publicly funded, they're not going to spaff billions of pounds up the wall to get the Olympics full coverage. So instead, it's on Discovery Plus, and Discovery Plus don't advertise anywhere. So
yay capitalism!
This is what I'm thinking about a lot. The streaming wars and how it's related because AEW and WWE go to Netflix, and how does it work? Streaming wars, blah blah blah. But I suppose since it's the Raw review, we'll talk about Rhea Ripley and Dominik Mysterio.
And it's kind of, this is what we have to talk about today, right?
Yeah.
I enjoyed this episode of Raw. Despite what the comments
good
on the edited news will tell you, I did enjoy this episode of Raw. I loved the Ilja match, the Ilja Bron match. Thought that was really good. What a fun main event that we had as well.
Oh, I'm big time. I've got a lot to say about the
I
event.
really enjoyed that. I thought the Wyatt 6 stuff was quite it was very different to what we've had on previous weeks. And Uncle Howdy being in the ring.
You're going to hear a lot of positives from us on this episode. There was
yeah.
even on stuff where I didn't feel it landed properly. There's still positive things I'd like to say.
100%,
so yeah.
But I think what everyone is kind of talking about coming out of this is this angle. Because this is the first real big shift in this story. Rhea Ripley came back. She was angry at Dom last week. She's laid claim to Dom and said, you are mine. And Dom's like, great, that's what I'm after. That's what I want. On this episode of Raw, they kind of had a couple of backstage segments where Dom was like, hey, I'm a little bit concerned actually about this relationship between Rhea Ripley and Jey Uso. And she's like, it's nothing. I'm just joking. I'm just joking around. And Finn Balor stands up and was like, well, we're tough guys. So what we should do is we should go find him and beat him up because we're tough blokes. And Rhea Ripley's like, no, you're a bunch of idiots. Don't do that. Do not start a war with Jey Uso. But they're doofuses. So they decide to do it anyway. And they decide that the best way to go find Jey Uso is to Scooby-Doo it and split up. But that leaves Dominik Mysterio on his own. So Liv Morgan comes up to him, and she does the Liv Morgan flirty stuff, and Dom's like, leave me alone. And Finn's like, I leave you alone for 10 seconds, and you're already flirting with Liv Morgan, drags him away. Carlito then makes a joke about that in the Judgment Den. And Rhea literally grabs Dom by the ear and drags him out to the ring to have this confrontation, which leads us to the big segment that we had on the show. So Rhea drags out Dom, but she's there really to call out Liv Morgan. And she calls out Liv Morgan. She's like, look, if you want Dom, come and get him. And Liv doesn't come down to the ring. She just appears in the crowd. She appears on, in the stands and stuff. And she says that I have got feelings for Dominik Mysterio, and I know that he's got feelings for me too.
What in the hell is that?
It's my flawless Liv Morgan impression.
That was your impression? I thought you were doing a bit. I thought this was a reference to something else. That was just a straight up impression.
Yeah, it's just
never do it again.
Do you not think that is what Liv Morgan says? I was like, gorgeous men like Dominik Mysterio do not want a woman who looks like you.
No, because she's not a South Park character. Is the thing. She's got an interesting pattern of speech, but it wasn't that. My favorite is her laugh that goes,
So she says that women like Rhea Ripley do not attract gorgeous men like Dominik Mysterio. And then she goes, gorgeous men like Dominik Mysterio want a woman like me. And she turns around to show off her butt. And
and it looks nice. I'm sorry, it does.
Look, okay.
Look, I had this on SmackDown yesterday. Cody Rhodes came out in athleisure wear, and I got a little bit excited. And
you're not the only person who has said that to me.
He looks so hot.
To be like,
I don't know what it is.
Does anyone see what Cody Rhodes was wearing on SmackDown?
I like it when he comes out wearing a suit and he looks good. He comes out with his tanned arms out, and I go, hello. Liv Morgan literally does a Christina Aguilera turnaround, and I'm like, well...
In Daisy Dukes, no less.
It's the thirst era. Give me the new Paul Levesque era all you want. This is the thirst trap era.
Yeah.
We're in it.
And as Wrestling YouTube's resident gorgeous man, I do push back on Liv Morgan's claim. You know, I'm gonna speak for all of Wrestling YouTube's gorgeous men here.
Yeah.
As the spokesperson for Wrestling,
the democratically elected leader.
Wrestling YouTube's gorgeous man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a small collective of us. There's only a handful.
It's
of
you
us.
and Simon Miller. That's bald men.
Your offer is on the table. You just haven't accepted it yet.
I'm too good for it. But
but you know, as the elected spokesperson, I think Liv Morgan is wrong.
Okay.
I think that as gorgeous men are also attracted to Rhea Ripley and go for a woman like Rhea Ripley.
This is the thing. Cards on the table. A lot of positive things I want to say about this episode of Raw. This segment isn't one of them.
I am, as the kids would say, shook by this.
Yeah, well, that's fair because I think I'm in a minority. But what I didn't really like about it was that it turned this sort of soap opera into doesn't go for girls like you when literally all Rhea Ripley's character really has been for a couple of years is this incredible, enigmatic Cleopatra meets Cersei dominating. I mean,
the build for her Becky Lynch match was just like, you show your ass too much.
So Shayna Baszler's the clip went viral of her desperately wanting her to sit on her face. Like so like it didn't make any sense to me, and it didn't make sense with the rest of what this Liv and Dom thing has been.
I do agree
even
with you
to your
there.
bit where we're talking about the idea at the end of it, she's going to turn. Maybe we should get to the end of the segment before I go into a full analysis. But like, there hasn't been a journey here. It's been Liv trying to get Dom saying no, thank you. Mm-hmm. So, what were we doing?
I agree with you on that point. I feel this is consistent with Liv Morgan's character in that she believes that the men prefer blondes. What was that? What was that film? Gentlemen prefer blondes, right? He's got a lovely tash now, which is what a gentleman has. So he does prefer a blonde as opposed to those icky goths who probably listen to Korn or something.
Yeah.
She come with me and my poppy entrance music. Don't go for brutality and all this sort of stuff over here. So I think that is consistent within the Liv Morgan character. But to your point, I don't think that it's consistent with the story that they have been telling. Liv doesn't want Dom because she thinks he deserves better. She wants Dom because it's taking him away from Rhea Ripley. That's kind of the genesis of the world. Whether that storyline has evolved and she now has developed feelings for Dom. Either way, so okay, we'll finish the segment and then we'll come into some analysis for it. So she says, what I want to hear... I'll stop doing the voice now because I think people are getting confused. After listening on the audio, they'll be like, oh, they're actually just playing clips from the show.
They've got Liv Morgan in,
yeah. So she says, I just want to hear the 3 words from Dom that I know he wants to say to me. And Dom grabs the microphone. She's like, please, everyone, let him speak. Let Daddy Dom speak. And what he says is, I hate you, Liv, which is 4 words. And
yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, and he's like, I hate you, Liv. You're ruining my life. I just want you to get out of my life. Get out of my life, Liv. I hate you. I want nothing to do with you. And Liv cries. She sobs her tears, and she sort of walks away, sort of like sad and dejected, just almost like dragging, like Charlie Brown and the blankets, just sort of like dragging. Is it Linus with the blanket? Yeah,
Linus.
But sad Charlie Brown, right? Like just walking away, and Rhea celebrates with Dom. She whispers something in his ear, gives him a big old lick on the face to say good boy. And off they go. And Rhea and Dom are sort of like back together. They're on the same page. They are a united front. And I think the reason why I'm in 2 minds on this segment as to whether or not this means that Dom is going to turn on Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam is because this segment was so definitive and so final. 2 weeks out from SummerSlam makes me feel like there is something that's going to happen at the pay-per-view. Part 2 of that is Liv Morgan this is either a ruse or she just is a bad actor. And so I don't know which one of that it is. Because her crying was so unbelievable that to me it means that she can't be doing that and thinking that it's good, which means that she's crocodile tearing it.
It's so funny when I try and assess like acting and performance and things like that, because I see sometimes really, really good versions of it, and then other times I see Wesley overacting his post-match interview on NXT, and that sort of throws me a little bit. So I don't know if I'm sitting there going like, maybe she's just doing that heightened soap opera performance, which would be fine. This, for me, when it comes like removing the performance element from it, I think it has to be a ruse in order for it to make sense with the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour, or the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour is a deeply ineffective tour. It just hasn't worked.
Well, she did get the title.
She got the title, but she got the title because Rhea wasn't there. So I feel like it's this example. I don't feel like it's over. I do feel like there is going to be a turn. I don't feel like that turn will be Dominik Mysterio. Now, I think it has to be in order for it to work fully. This has to not be the sort of end. How do I explain it? Basically, I feel like this story works if it's a love triangle, except it's not a love triangle. It is very much a love line, and then Liv Morgan is over here because it's Dominik and Rhea, and Dominik has expressed this whole time he's not interested in Liv. He's not interested in Liv. In fact, the only week he expressed any form of succumbing to Liv's advances was the week Rhea returned. I think had there been a gradual progression of Dom, maybe over the course of the months to the point where they were just, we're just sort of friendly. Whereas even, hey, the Judgment Den's full of nice kit, including this PS5. Even Dom was a little like, I don't really know what to do with all of that. Whereas the others were a lot more cool about it. Had Dom been won over, this moment I think would have hit a lot more. It didn't. There were elsewhere in the show, there were things about it that I really liked. So I really liked as they were arriving, you had that incredible shot where it's like the baddies arrive.
Yeah, so
the Judgment Day have arrived.
So
and it's
Judgment Day arrived, but it's Finn, JD, and Dom. So the crowd boo.
And then the camera goes through them, and you've got the good guys within the Judgment Day, which is Rhea and Damian Priest having a great time together.
Yeah.
And then Carlito's also here, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, the camera then moves through them, and it's just Carlito just carrying bags.
Yeah, very funny. Yeah. Very funny, very good bit. And actually, you set me up really nicely for where this episode was going to go. Then when it comes down to the whole business of, I'm actually quite nervous about Jey. And she goes, excuse me, I've looked at your social media too. I think that part I really enjoyed. And then you go through to them hunting the building, looking for Jey Uso kind of thing, which sets up something I think is quite brilliant writing later on. You had, I thought was going to be a sort of like, you go that way, you go this way, Dom and Finn thing. And why I struggle to talk about this is because I'm aware there's a possibility I'm fantasy booking myself into disappointment. When I'm going to tell a story. It's
please go for it.
Dan Layton's the Roundabout Story Hour. I had early access to the Greatest Showman album a couple of years ago. I know, because we were going to do a partnership about it that never went through. But I got early access to the album. I listened to the whole thing and made the story in my head. And then I went to see the film, and I was like, "Wow, that song is really powerful for this story beat, and that's this song is this one, and like blah, blah, blah." And then I went to see the film, and I was like, "Oh, you're just going to use that song here? That's rubbish. Like, it didn't have the effect." So I'd create. This is why I now no longer listen to scores before going to see musicals, because if I've heard it, I've created a story, and I might be disappointed by what I see. A similar thing happened with Wicked actually when I was 13. So like, I feel like we sometimes fantasy book ourselves into disappointment as a fandom anyway. And I'm wary of doing that with Finn and Liv, because I think a lot of people sort of see that as a natural place to go. In fairness, we've been told that within the story, him picking up the key, him coming out of the car with Liv and things like that. I was a little bit like, they've got the right idea. We should split up. I'll go this way, you go that way. And then, no, you won't follow Liv. You go that way, and maybe Finn follows Liv kind of thing. I was intrigued by... Finn didn't actually follow Liv, but there was an implicit suggestion that maybe he might. I feel like that's the turn that needs to happen to justify this. Otherwise, Liv has just not taken no for an answer for like 7 or 8 weeks, and then cried when Dom said no again. And it doesn't feel narratively satisfying.
Yeah, I think that the crying certainly comes from that he embarrassed her in public.
But here's the thing: she doesn't. If if I'm to believe the only reason she's going after Dominik Mysterio is because she's trying to get one over on Rhea Ripley, she shouldn't be upset about that. She shouldn't be crying about that. Which is why I think it's a letdown that they haven't allowed for moments over the course of the story for Dom to succumb a little bit for the narrative satisfaction of this moment. I don't feel anything from this moment other than, that's a bit of entertaining television. I don't feel gripped, engrossed. The moment that Liv kissed Dom like 6 or 7 weeks ago, I was like, oh, that's changed things. You know me, I've been a champion for this story. In this moment, I just felt nothing, and that was a bit of a shame.
I think that sort of some of Triple H's booking, in a sense of, I don't think he does strike when the iron is hot. I think LA Knight is a great example of that. Like, I think the moment of LA Knight winning that US title has long since passed.
Yes,
and it's now going to happen past the point of when it is no longer hot. Granted, a lot of this story has required Rhea to be here, but I think it's the same thing with.
But I don't agree with that. I really don't. I that's what I mean by the opportunity with her being out, having a long time for her absence to allow Dom to sort of. That's I think the crucial. I know I'm repeating myself, but the crucial part of it is Dominik has been consistent in his no. Had Dominik been less like she's away, the cat's away, the mouse will play, or whatever it is. If he'd succumbed a little bit, this would have felt more. So I don't agree that Rhea had to be there. I think but the striking while the iron's hot point is kind of salient. That said, we always joke that they're watching the show. I don't know that they fully are, but you can't
on their burner accounts.
You can't take every fantasy booking pitch, otherwise you'd book a Hell in a Cell match for the first match. But like there is something about striking while the iron's hot, course correcting, recognizing maybe we use this as an opportunity to tell this, like we can get there. That's the GPS thing that I quite appreciate his booking philosophy. I don't think this is a story where he's executed it in the best way.
I see SummerSlam now with kind of two different avenues. Certainly now having spoken to you about it as well, which one of the things I love about doing this show is speaking with people and getting other people's ideas and thoughts on things. Because I kind of thought I had a pretty clear idea in my mind. I have said kind of from day one, I remember doing the King and the Queen review with Sat, and Sat was like, Dom's in with Liv. This is a complete ruse. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. Like, I feel like Dom is loyal to Rhea. He is trying to stop Liv. And I've kind of been, there was times where I've been like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that Dom is actually working with Liv. But the longer it has gone on, the more I'm like, no, he just keeps saying no. Like after a while, I think I've just got to believe that is the case.
I think he keeps saying no in a very surface level way. There's no depth to it.
But on this episode here, when he was like so definitive with 2 weeks out from SummerSlam, so definitive with, no, I hate you, Liv, and she goes off crying. That was when the alarm bell started to ring of like, oh, maybe he is working with Liv. And this is just a way for them to screw Rhea Ripley come SummerSlam. That will be the big hot angle at SummerSlam. That isn't Roman Reigns' return at the end of the show. It will be Dom pushes over or screws Rhea out the tile, and he makes out with Liv on the stage, and they're this new awful power couple. That's option one. Option which I think we'd say is the swerve. Option two is just doing what the story is telling you that it's been doing, which is Finn screws.
Because you also have that Money in the Bank shot of him staring at Damian Priest. There's been a very conscious and specific separation of heel Judgment Day and face Judgment
100%,
Day.
100%, yeah, which is that Finn screws Rhea, and Finn and Liv are the power couple they're here, and then maybe Finn can screw Damian Priest as well and like kick both of them out of the group, and they become the new Judgment Day, and Dom does stick with Rhea. Those are kind of the two options. One of them is the swerve, and one of them is just, this is what the story has been telling you it's going to do. Of those two, which one do you sort of gravitate more towards?
I'm all in on this one. I'm all in on Finn. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't... People like to boo Dominik Mysterio, so there's an argument you could be made for that.
I was going to make that argument, but yes, absolutely.
I think you've done some really... This show gave me the first out-and-out babyface Damian Priest I've really seen. And I was in for it. I'm really here for it.
Fully % babyface.
And I was properly here for it to the point where I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want him to lose, which is a fascinating thing. We'll talk about that segment when we get there. But that and how over Rhea Ripley is as a babyface, I'm almost intrigued by separating them out and having Dominik Mysterio, see if we can babyface Dominik Mysterio by his dedication and his loyalty to Rhea Ripley, whether that will win him over in the eyes of the fans in some way. We've not seen Dominik Mysterio babyface outside of the Rey Mysterio connection. and it was nothing. It might be a character now. So I'd be interested to see whether or not they can do something with it. By the way, all of this is personal taste stuff. So it's like, it's not about, objectively X is good, B is bad. You might just watch it. And various shows that I've watched throughout my life, there's been an episode where I don't really like that one, and then I've come around to it in the end, kind of thing. I mean,
there are some people who incorrectly think that Rachel and Joey was a bad part of Friends.
It was a dreadful part of Friends, but we're not going to go there on this particular podcast. But
one day I will, though.
Yeah, I know, but you'll be wrong. So, like, whereas the idea of, like, let's say Liv, Finn costs Rhea the match and Liv retains her belt, and then they get a receipt the next week or something on Raw when Rhea costs Finn and JD her tag titles to a team I will put forth later. Maybe then you've got a sort of intergender Finn and Liv versus Dom and Rhea angle that neatly separates the Judgment Day into their thing. The whole business of this episode was Rhea talking about, you've got the tag titles, Damien's going to keep his, I'm going to get mine back, blah, blah, blah. And if they just cost each other the belts and they've got nothing, that might be quite narratively satisfying. Then we can move on into the next phase of whatever this is. I know we've sort of been calling for the Judgment Day to split for literal months.
It's not even months. They've been teasing this split of the group for a full calendar year, maybe even longer than that.
It's just this week was the first one where I saw all the pieces and went, I think this is the angle.
I feel like I've been saying for a while, certainly I think I said it was on 3 count as well. I'm pretty sure that SummerSlam is the end of the Judgment Day. I feel like it has to be at this point, because I'm not sure how you can keep this story going afterwards. So that's kind of why I've got my sort of 2 different worldviews of where I can see it going, and I think that is actually fairly good storytelling, because that means you're going into a show not really knowing which way it's going to go. The one thing I'm fairly confident on, maybe we'll talk about this more next week when we do the prediction show, is I'm pretty sure that Liv is retaining the title. I think so too. I'd probably push the idea that I think she has to retain the title, because I think if she just loses the title, that has done nothing for her, and it's kind of just meant the last 5-6 months while Rhea's been out meaningless, because it's just been like, well, Becky had it for 3 weeks, and then Liv's had it, defended it once, and then she just loses it back to Rhea.
The only little asterisk I put on this is that there was a report recently, and you know how much I hate saying that sentence, but there was a report recently that the reason Bron Breakker didn't win at Money in the Bank was because they wanted it to happen on a quote-unquote bigger stage.
Yeah.
And I feel like Tempest quite rightly posted, book your shows like A shows and they'll feel like A shows. Just because it's a B show doesn't mean it has to be.
You've made this point before as well.
We talked about this with Elimination Chamber. If that's how Triple H likes to book things, if that's how Triple H envisions his title changes happening on major shows, everything feels in stasis to me. And it's like, well, okay, well, if Liv wins the title, then Rhea's going to have to wait until the Royal Rumble, maybe even WrestleMania, to get it back. And that leaves the entire division in stasis. If you start thinking, hey, maybe Bad Blood is a place where we can blow off this feud in that same way that like Jericho and Michaels blew off their incredible, was it 07-08 feud in like Unforgiven in a ladder match. If you can blow off your major feuds in a really satisfying way at a quote-unquote B show, then that blows everything wide open and creates so many opportunities for booking. That's just something that I'd like counsel the thought process within the creative room.
We'll come on to the Bron thing in a bit when we come to Bron's match. As a segment on this show, though, you've made your point of you didn't think it was like the best segment of this.
It was a story beat I didn't enjoy in an angle I have overall enjoyed. I can put it that way.
I think that's completely fair. For me, I think the reason why I kind of got on board with this segment is the thing that I've been calling for on this story is to get there. Like there are certain stories on Raw which I am now just like I've now got to this point with Woods in the Final Testament. I'm just like I say, just to get there. I've been there for a while with Chad Gable and Alpha Academy. Just get there, and I've been get there for a little bit. I've certainly been get there for a while with the Judgment Day, but I've kind of been get there with Liv and Rhea. This was one of those moments. This was an actual angle they did, which is like, and now the story goes into its next chapter, and because we have been in chapter 1 of it for so many months, I was like, great, wonderful. Let's move on. Let's see what the next phase of this story is. So I'm giving it a thumbs up for that, but perhaps that is me setting my bar far too low.
Or maybe it's just that, like, maybe we shouldn't apply this level of No, sod it. We should. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was gonna, but maybe we shouldn't apply this level of expectation to it. When I'm like, actually, you've done better. You've done so much better. You told really later on in the show. There's an absolutely incredible bit of booking that I really, really, really liked. So I know you can do it. So I should be applying that to everything.
Well, let's get into your Ultrachats. Let's see what you have to say about this. Can I ask you to read this? Because I wanted to set up a gag for earlier that
Fantastic.
I wanted to do, but I now need to go and do that because I'm quite known for doing the gags and gagging, so I need to like gag away on some of this thing over here. So if you don't mind, if I could just go and quickly do that.
By all means, I'm quite known for gagging. Geek of Arabia says this must be the first time the crowd has let Dominik get a word in edgewise without drowning him out in boos. That ugly cry from Liv tells me the angle isn't over. The entire segment was great. Scorned Liv incoming. This is the thing. If Scorned Liv was where we were going, I wish they'd set that up sooner. I think you're right, though. The crying says the angle isn't over. I think it's more likely to be next phase in my plan, Liv. James Dobinson says, for me, the Liv Dom Rhea story needs a twist at SummerSlam. I'd love a scenario where Liv and Finn have been playing everyone along, starting all the way back to their Too Sweet moment in May 22. Goodness gracious, I mean, that is long-term storytelling. Now, that would be long-term storytelling, is what you say at the end of your Ultra Chat. That is one of those where this isn't a point that is organic to me. I've heard this elsewhere, but Triple H is quite good at finding little moments and using them. So, like, it's not that the plan was in place for Liv and Finn to get together in May 22, but you've gone, we've got that in the archives. We can use that. Let's do that. He's quite good at sewing and weaving that in here and there. Tyrol Marcus says, Dom will betray Rhea and Finn and JD with Carlito will betray Damien. It will be fun. P.S. It's never coming home.
Oh, that's sad. I went to the pub to watch that.
It might one day. But then this is it. If it's going to come home, what's the next angle? It's always about what follows on after. Ben says, man, Liv got stopped from getting with a guy she likes. If only there was a word to describe this, but I can't think of anything. Taking it away.
Clam jam!
Stop
Clam jam! Climb that clam.
Stop it. Anyway, Liv's mistake was trying to get a bottom like Dom to the top. Luke, what would you use to describe Liv's situation?
1 second.
We've moved on. He's done it. Fanta Consumer is a 7-month member. Did they even mention the title during the segment? It's fun. I hope women feuding over men doesn't become commonplace. Likely in the minority, though. Yeah, it's a fun alternative when it is an alternative to the traditional men, with a Jezebel in the middle kind of thing. I am glad. I think the title was mentioned briefly. This is what I mean, though, by it sort of holding the entire division in stasis. If the story... This is actually a storyline that you could do without the title. We talk about this a lot, feuds that aren't over titles. Now, it wouldn't pass the Bechdel test, but it wouldn't need to. It is one where, someone else could have the title. We could have a world title feud as well as this feud. I like that the world title's in it because that's part of their revenge tour. But,
I agree, though, that, and I've said this before on the show, it doesn't feel like... I keep forgetting that Liv is the world champion.
Yes, I know what you mean.
And part of that is the storyline. The other part of it, but I think this is a much easier one to fix, is that she has not defended the belt. She has not been in a storyline about the belt. There aren't people gunning to win her belt since
that's
she's had
the big, that's the big thing.
It's just been Zelina Vega.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden... We're giving Zelina Vega a win on TV, and I'm like, well, it's a bit late for that. Like, you've already done the world title program with her. Like, so I kind of get the frustrating thing I've got is you could have done a small program with Liv Morgan over this world title to establish her as the world champion with a credible challenger, I say, not just Zelina Vega, with a credible challenger. That means that when Rhea comes back, it is not just a case of, oh, yeah, she is the world champion. That's right, she did steal it from Rhea, didn't she?
You would have your parallel storylines. Like, you kind of had it a little bit at the beginning with Liv and Becky, where it was Liv wanting the belt. Liv and Becky wasn't the most effectively booked feud, but it was a feud over the belt and over each other. Meanwhile, Dominik was around and about. Mm-hmm. And then you have Liv and Dom carry on over here while Liv is also defending the belt, and that she can have her storylines and her conversations. And to a degree, Zelina was involved in that slightly because of her Rey Mysterio connection. So, but it's just that
week and a half.
That part. So, like, if you do that, and she didn't defend it at Money in the Bank. She could have had a feud at Money in the Bank. She could have had a feud at
Clash of the Castle.
She could have had two. parallel to this Dom storyline. It's not like you can only have one or the other. There could have been both. A plot, B plot, C plot, all that kind of extravaganza.
Absolutely. Also, I think Ben had a request of me as well.
No, you already said it. You already said it. Kuzu says, I'm not too fond that the top women's feud on Raw isn't even about the title, but it is good television, I admit. I can't really predict where it's going to go. Is Jey going to be seriously involved? Raw is easily superior than SmackDown. That's not close.
That I am fully on board with. Like, I think there was a period of time when SmackDown did feel like the hottest show because it had all
over to WrestleMania, especially.
Well, and even afterwards, because you had all the new Bloodline stuff come in, and it felt like, Tama Tonga has come in, and then like Tonga Loa has come in, and Jacob Fatu has come in, and they were doing some really good stuff. But man, I was watching SmackDown this week, and outside of Scene Queen doing the theme song for, or using one of her songs for Tiffany Stratton, I'm like, I've seen a lot of this show before.
The way we described both episodes at the weekend was they both felt like maintenance ones where nothing bad happened in any way, shape, or form, but you did not need to go out of your way to see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and they've done another one of those next week because they've taped the episodes.
Right, and I feel like on SmackDown, especially with it was like when we sit there and think, what we're going to talk about this week, what's our main thing? Bloodline Stand Tall, which is kind of, that was the SmackDown way for a little while. Bloodline Stand Tall, Bloodline Stand Tall. Whereas at least on this show, there was a lot of variety, and some of it hit and some of it didn't, but a lot of it, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I appreciate that.
I did too. I've got my gag now.
Oh, gag away.
So I'm going to gag away on this one because you may recall the absolute Stone Cold classic of WWE makes a child cry.
Yeah, big time.
Well, they made a woman cry this week. It's my alternative thumbnail that I was going to have for this week.
Good.
I opted for a more sensible one, but I'm glad that I've got that one.
What
in the
is
back
the
pocket.
more sensible one?
It was I Hate You, Liv.
Great.
And it's Rhea Ripley licking Dom's face.
Great, yeah. I mean, licking the face is the one that's going to get people to click.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But that was funny.
Yeah, maybe I'll keep that in the locker.
In the archive. They might do it again.
Well, you never know, and it's a very good boo-boo face.
This is the thing. She's very good at that crying face.
And that's what I mean, because I've seen Liv Morgan actually cry because she cried on her way to the ring when she was going to win Money in the Bank because it massively telegraphed that she was going to win Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
So I know what actual emotional Liv Morgan looks like.
This is her also 0-2 for telling people that she loves them in the middle of a WWE arena.
Is it?
Lana.
That's right.
Didn't go well for her then either.
Part of the lesbian storyline.
She I hear you're a lesbian now, Father.
I keep forgetting that was her big return.
That was her big character shift.
She was sexy woman in a bath.
Yeah.
And then she came back and it was like, I'm in love with Lana now. And then it never came up again.
Yeah.
And then Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff just went their separate ways and were never called back.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the rest of this show. It opened with, obviously, people arriving in the building, but Gunther opened the show to very, very good crowd here, I must say. And he talked about how Damian Priest is a pretender and a wannabe, not a real world champion like someone like Gunther is. And he says, hey, Judgment Day, you're just street trash. Like, you're just a bunch of trash that I'm just going to walk all over. So you may as well just come out here and just hand me the belt.
I said this on Raw last week. Sorry to cut you off, but every time he says street trash, I go straight into Aladdin.
Street trash. Yeah. Riff raff. Yeah. Street trash. Yeah. Scoundrel. Take that. Let's not be too hasty. Still, I think he's rather tasty.
This is what Gunther said during the promo.
Well, I mean, okay, so here's my thing about the segment. Because Damian Priest came out. He didn't cut a promo. He just got into a brawl with Gunther. They had a very, very cool, intense brawl. Security came down. Producers came down. Referees came down. Broke them all apart. They kept breaking apart from each other and going with a fight. It was Damian Priest, full-on babyface Damian Priest. Genuinely really, really good. This is the most I've been into Damian Priest since he's won this belt. So I'm like, this is a big thumbs up for me. My big thumbs down for it, though, is Michael Cole being like, well, here's the thing about Gunther. He's an entitled brat. And I'm like, oh, no. That is not what Gunther's character is. You stop that right now. That is absolutely not what the ring general is. And that is, I'm not going to say it's, they've ruined it. It's like, it's a concern. You're telling me that on commentary? Let's not push forward that this is the new character for Gunther.
Yeah, I don't remember him saying that because I kind of tuned out, I think, from the commentary for a moment. I was just enjoying the brawl because there's something I talked about. Where are you going?
I'm going to go to the aircon.
Oh, I see. I have liked... I can't do it if you're not here because if anyone just tunes in, I look silly.
Well, I'm here. I'm back now.
Hello. business of I've been after someone coming out and battering someone. I like when people come out and batter people.
Yeah.
Do you remember my pitch for after Clash? As I wanted Drew to just claymore everybody for all the show. The alternative was actually a just as good choice, but I liked the idea of maybe Cody is involved over the next couple of weeks battering the Bloodline at the end of there. He's on his own, but he's got his bat. He comes out, he batters you, runs away. I think it's a Steve Austin thing. I really like that Steve Austin just came in all fists. I'm into it. I like that as a thing. So I liked that that's what this segment was. It made me feel like it really was venomous. It really was angry. And we talked about this last week on the show because people didn't like the idea of what Gunther was saying, which is this whole business of you are by choice. Being on the streets is a choice or whatever he was saying, which is pure heeldom. And I liked that when he came out here, he was starting to say something. He was like, I've thought about what I said last week. Maybe I was a little bit harsh. Registered the booze and then just sod it and was dealing in it again. That was great stuff. The idea of him being entitled, I think it can be both. I think he can be entitled and believe that he is better. That is what that ties in with his idea, that idea that you can be whatever you like. It's not my fault that you were less privileged than I was growing up. You could have made the choice to be better. That's an entitled worldview. So I can kind of see an entitlement to Gunther. The crucial thing, though, is he backs it up. And we saw his fisticuffs in this. He is able to back it up in the fight as well. The whole character can't just be he's entitled. He does back it up. But an entitlement is a little... It's this mix. It's a worthy entitlement, if that makes sense.
You can still be entitled. It's not the word I would use to describe Gunther.
Right.
Like he is the king of the ring. He is the guy who was Intercontinental Champion for 666 days. He is the ring general. Like there's a reason why he was on top and undefeated for so long. It's not because he's entitled. It's because he's better than you.
I think you can be entitled and better than me.
It's just not the word I would use. Like,
that's fair. But
like this is it. And like, Pat McAfee was very much on that sort of like the back foot of just like, no, I just don't like him. I just don't like him. I'm like, this is not what I want from my presentation for Gunther because I think you can just do so much better. And apparently, like the reports are, Gunther's very involved in his creative because there's a lot of things about WWE that Gunther does not like.
Well, he said that
he's very open about that in interviews. You ask him anything, he's just like, look, I don't think WWE is actually very good. But I think there are some aspects of it they do really well. And so he wants to sort of focus on those bits as opposed to some of these bits over here that he just doesn't like. Because you were going to say with the bit that...
No, just that I was going to say what you said.
Yeah.
About his saying that he didn't want to be around when Vince was there.
Yeah. And it's not even just Vince was there. There was something like he's talked about sort of like the spooky stuff that he's just not a fan of. That's not his style of pro wrestling. I'll tell you what my style of pro wrestling is though, because they had the wicked brawl backstage, and Adam Pearce was like, "You're both barred from the building." Our opening contest was Ilja Dragunov versus Bron Breakker. This is like the third or fourth match they've had now on Monday Night Raw, and every single one of them has been awesome. I was just writing up my TV awards for the WrestleTalk magazine, and it was like, "What was your favorite match of June?" I was like, "Well, Ilja Dragunov versus Bron Breakker," because they just go out there, and like I'm wondering if anyone is actually telling them that wrestling is a work. Because I don't think that they know. I think that they just go out there and they just beat the absolute piss out of each other. This is why I was so amped up for Dragunov to get called up from NXT, because I'm like, look, you can be doing this a lot with Dragunov. And Bron Breakker is just insanely good at this. And I loved this match. It was so physical. It was so vicious and violent, and they genuinely felt like two guys who really wanted to be the number one contender to the Intercontinental Championship because they believe that they should be the Intercontinental Champion. And I think you kind of combine this with what you've got going on with Sheamus and Bronson Reed and now Pete Dunne as well. And I'm like, man, that is a meaty old mid-card thing to kind of challenge over this IC belt and really make it this sort of meaty dude title where you just go in there and you just punch each other dead hard and you leave there with blisters all over your chest and you look awesome at the end of it. And these guys, both of them came out this looking so strong, which is incredible when you consider the ending of this. Because Ilja Dragunov gives Bron Breakker the Death Valley Driver on the apron. And as Bron Breakker is sort of standing up and he's trying to get to, Dragunov is going to dive down and do the H-bomb off the apron. Bron catches him with a spear and Dragunov hits the back of his head on the LED board. And he rolls into the ring and the referee checks and realizes, uh-oh, that's not good. Calls the match off, declares Bron the winner. I'm so thrilled. I thought it was going to be a DQ. Mm-hmm. I was ready for this match to end in a DQ so they could set up a triple threat for SummerSlam. So I was thrilled that it just ended with a clean finish, referee stoppage. Bron's declared the winner, and he's going on to SummerSlam to face Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. The report is, you mentioned this earlier, the reason why Bron didn't win at Money in the Bank is because Triple H likes to do title changes at Big Four pay-per-views. So the idea now is that we can do the title change at the Big Four pay-per-view instead. If that's the case, don't book the Money in the Bank match, would be my argument to that. That aside, I thought this was so good. I loved this.
I don't like ref stoppages. That's a personal thing. I'm not an MMA fan. I know it's probably a very legitimate thing in boxing and MMA.
Probably is. I have no idea.
I would imagine if you do get your head, clocked, they can't let you carry on competing, things like that. I get it. It's a perfectly, and I have seen a lot of people really like it. So this is not me saying anything bad. For me, I compare it over to the SmackDown side. We talked a lot about. As you were mentioning, it's a great intercontinental title division kind of thing. That we need the US title off LA Knight to give them something to
100%
off Logan Paul rather to give them a title to fight for. Even not necessarily if they're fighting for it, because Pete Dunne and Sheamus doesn't seem to be about the title, but it is the division that might position them to be in that title. On SmackDown, you had Melo and Andrade with a clean finish, and I don't think that made Melo lose. Just in that moment, Andrade was the one who was able to get him down for 3. In this scenario, I don't think that Dragunov would have looked quote-unquote weak for losing a pin to Bron Breakker in this moment, because either one of them could have got it.
If anything, you could make the argument that this finish makes him look weaker than a pinfall.
That is how I feel. That is not how the majority of people on the internet seem to feel. I feel lying there going, ow, and Daphne Shawn is like, oh, you're all right, babes. Oh, he's not all right, babes. We're calling it off. And then Breakker doesn't go and carry on battering him. For me, made it feel awkward and made it feel less decisive. And it didn't make Dragunov feel as strong for me. That seems to be a very, very isolated opinion. So I take that on the chin entirely, because what we got in the match was further proof that both of these guys are so tasty, and every single time they're going to be a match, I'm going to have a great time.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of a competitive division where people do win and do lose, and it's all about jockeying for position in the hierarchy, and I took the loss, but I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to go back out there, and maybe I have to face someone a little bit less good than me.
Work my way back up.
I'm more about that than I am about a DQ, a stoppage, thing like that. I'd rather have a time limit draw than a stoppage, to be honest with you.
Oh, no, I love a time limit draw.
Yeah.
Well, I love this finish. They don't do this finish a lot.
They don't. That's fair.
And so it kind of came out of nowhere. Also, I think it really does serve the purpose of putting Bron over as the unstoppable badass.
It does do that.
The joke that we made coming out of Money in the Bank was, turns out this unstoppable badass is pretty stoppable as long as you hit him with your finish and you can pin him. This is just like, no, Sammy's in a world of trouble, which is kind of why, I wish they hadn't done the Money in the Bank match. Because if this was the first time that Bron was going after the IC belt, you'd be like, oh man, Sammy's in major, major trouble here. Now it's more of a case of I've seen him win, so maybe it's not as much trouble. Maybe it's just that Sammy's better than Ilja. So I wish they hadn't done the Money in the Bank match, but I do think that this really did serve the purpose to make sure that people know Bron is an unstoppable badass and he is terrifying. He can beat... If this happens to Sami, then he's going to win the IC belt. He doesn't even have to pin you.
I would almost rather we had a situation where Bron had won the belt at Money in the Bank and this was your match at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Because then if Dragunov takes a pin at SummerSlam, well, you've lost to the Intercontinental Champion. Ain't no big deal.
Of course not. No.
And
should never be above being pinned by a champion.
And then he goes into a feud with someone else, and we know that he's going to have bangers with Bronson Reed, or he's going to have bangers with Jey Uso, or whoever. I don't know. I'm not Jey Uso. I've got other plans for, but you see my point.
I've kind of, you've actually hit the nail on the head there for me, Dan. I've been trying to sort of struggle. Because there's a meaty mid card. It's the banger division.
Yeah,
that is what the Intercontinental Championship is going to become on Raw. The banger division.
I don't care about bangers. I found that clip of Gunther saying that in my folder the other day and remembered how much I enjoyed it.
This is where we had the Judgment Day in the Judgment Den with their PS5 that we spoke about earlier. It's Tozawa's birthday.
Happy birthday, Tozawa.
For yesterday.
Birthday, Boxing Day.
So Woods had a cake for him, and Otis just took a chunk out of the cake and ate it.
39 years old.
Is he really?
Good 10 years younger than Bobby Lashley.
We then got a recap of the opening.
That was a shady joke to the internet.
Oh, yeah?
Well, the It's a whole other conversation. We'll save it.
We then had Lyra Valkyria versus Sonya Deville. Really good match. I enjoyed these two working together as well. We had some distractions from Shayna and Stark interfered. They had a brawl with the Party Girls, and then Sonya hit the Deville's avocado for the win.
She did, which sounds like a 70s dessert, doesn't it? Or like a 70s canapé, a Deville's avocado.
The Deville's avocado.
I really, really liked the length that this got in contrast to the other week. Well, there you go. Both this one and later on in the show, we had Zoey and Zelina. Both of them had like actual time, and that's really all I've been asking for.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that. You know, it was a bit clunky in some places, but in other places, I think they work really well together. And I like the continuing. I like that this was a full on, and there was interference. But I liked that it was decisive. You know, I've got you. I've done you again. Mm-hmm. This move is going to get you. I do feel like Lyra Valkyria is a weird collaborator for the Party Girls. Then again, she owns denim shorts, so maybe she goes to the club as well.
Well, I think that she is with the Party Girls because they need a third.
Yeah, it feels like a big drop off from King of the Ring finalist for me.
And this is what happens if you have no women's world title scene.
Exactly,
and that's women just sort of fall into this tag division that is more or less. It's weirdly got more teams in it than it's ever had before, but feels really non-existent because the tag champs are just never on the show.
And so if you have, you know, you've got. That's why I'm saying that not everything has to be about a title. Liv and Rhea, ironically, given that it started about a title, doesn't need the title. The title helps, but the title could help elsewhere. And it's one of those things where I don't want this idea of the title changes must happen at big shows. We also must have our stories end with a title change at big shows. I don't want that to keep an entire division in stasis when, on the merit of this, you actually got a lot of good talent with opportunities. Kiana James hasn't been on telly for ages, and she's quite good as well.
She was called up, wasn't she? She had one match.
She was going to be Pierce's assistant, and then I don't know if she's just gone off to take a course.
That's right. She wanted to. What was she going to do for him?
She wanted to advocate for him or something.
Was it advocate?
Something. She was
adjudicate.
an A word. Adjudicate.
She was going to adjudicate for Adam Pearce.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
Yeah. Well, there you go. But this is it. Like you actually are not holding a division. You are holding a division back by not allowing them. In the same way that on the men's division, you talked about your bangers division, we could quite easily have that in the women's division as well. It's just a certain style of booking, which has its merits, and we have been the benefactors of those merits. It needs, it just needs to be used elsewhere.
I enjoyed the match, though.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed the match.
We threw to the latest Wyatt 6 VHS. We didn't actually have Abbie the Witch deliver it this time. They were just like, look, we've got one already, so we're going to play it. And it was Uncle Howdy asking Abbie to look at herself, and then she did a scream.
Yes, this one wasn't my favorite of the videos.
It's weird as well, because when the comments on the edited video, it was like, man, you really skipped over the best Wyatt 6 video we've had so far.
Oh, really?
And I was kind of taken aback by that, because I thought the Rowan one last week was like incredible.
Everything the Wyatt Six has done thus far has been incredible, including this
very good, very
subsequent
effective
segment. This video, while good, I was like, oh, I want to know more about why Nikki crossed his sister Abigail. For some reason, it felt overlooked.
Abbie the Witch.
My apologies, but I want to know more about. I want to know more. Yeah, and I felt like I only got some of Nikki's drama school crazy acting.
Yeah,
where we could have had something like we got with Rowan from her. You know.
We got a promo for Jelly Roll because he's going to be performing at SummerSlam.
Of course he is. He loves it.
And then we got CM Punk coming out for a promo, and he's got his big news, which is that he is medically cleared.
Yes, boy.
And he calls out Drew McIntyre for a fight. Drew comes out but says, like, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to fight you now because me and you, that's box office, baby. So we should be doing this on pay-per-view. The story being that this is part of his reinstation as he's negotiated with Adam Pearce that he gets his match with CM Punk. So he's like, look, I've got my match with you. Like, I don't need to have the fight with you now. Not knowing that there's another wrinkle to this. So Adam Pearce comes out because Punk wants to go out for the fight. Security go and breaks them up. Or stops Punk from going for the fight anyway. Adam Pearce comes out and says, like, it is official! This match is happening at SummerSlam. It's going to be Drew versus Punk. But here's the thing is I haven't just got a Drew and Punk problem. I've got a referee problem. And out comes Seth Rollins in all of his big satin regalia. And he comes out and he announces that he is going to be the special guest referee for Drew and Punk at SummerSlam. And immediately I was like, cool. So they're going to do the Shawn Taker Brett finish. And
Shawn Taker, Brett?
Yeah.
Will it take? SummerSlam 97?
Yeah. So,
Was that Taker?
no. So, yeah, the Brett and Taker match with Shawn as the special guest referee.
Was that Taker? I watched it the other day.
And when Shawn clocks him with the chair and Brett
He
pins
spits him in the face.
And yeah, he spits on him.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Shawn has to reluctantly count the pin and walk away.
I just forgot it was Taker for some reason.
So I think that is exactly where we're heading for now. And I've got a big thumbs up for that. Like, I know people have got...
It's one of the best finishes ever.
Well, I know people are a bit down on Seth being the special guest referee because it's like, it's not the best use of Seth. And I get that. Like, it arguably isn't the best use of Seth. But I think that this allows you to be a bit more creative with a finish than if you just do a triple threat match.
Yeah. I've heard the conversation about, like, Seth has more right to be pissed at Punk than at Drew. So there's an imbalance there. I think the balance of that is it's not just the fact that, you know, Punk cost him his opportunity. It's also Drew inserted himself into the match and made it a triple threat match. So Drew is as much a part of costing him that opportunity as anybody. So I think it's fair that he's got beef with both of them. I also liked how Adam Pearce got one over on Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, because Drew didn't know that Seth was the special guest.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just like, well, why didn't you just give him the match because he didn't apologize to your refs and you were cross at him? Well, actually, no. The answer is, like, I've reinstated you and you've got what you wanted, but I didn't tell you the full story. So he's got one over on it. So I quite like that as well. It's great. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I like the SummerSlam 97 idea. I like even just the idea of what is it going to be. I like the fact that, well, Punk has to win, right? But Drew has to win, right?
Well, I was going to say, I'm now with the SummerSlam 97 sort of in mind. I think that Punk wins because if there's one person that Seth doesn't want to win, it's Punk. Like, he doesn't like Drew, but at least there is some form of mutual respect there following WrestleMania. You know, he beat him and he was just like, look, you earned this. He shook his hand at the end of the match, but he does not want CM Punk to win. So if he costs Drew the match, then has to count the pin for CM Punk, like, that's the best thing about that finish. Is that
damn it?
Exactly, yeah. It's Brett's reaction,
the big baby face,
and it's Brett's selling of it. Like, Taker does a great job, Shawn does a great job. Brett's so good in that moment because Shawn clocks Taker, and then Brett's like, "Can it?" And he just gets down nonchalantly, gets into the pin, and Shawn's like, that I've made an error here. Slides out the ring, 1, 2, 3, immediately walks away. Like, you can do that. You can't do it with a chair shot because it's a different time, but you can do something around that. And I think that finish then adds so much more to Drew's story because all he wants to do is get his revenge on CM Punk, and he keeps getting screwed out of these things. Like, he keeps getting screwed. Punk screwed him on 3 separate occasions. He finally gets his hand on him. Now Seth screwed him.
Yeah. I like that it's not going to be like a run-in interference kind of jobby. I know people have been a bit bored about that now. Sorry to the Scottish people who didn't like that. I just said the word jobby. But also, there's the extra little thought that comes a bit later of you're going to find out Seth's refereeing conditions.
Oh, he's got referees conditions.
So, like, what's that going to be? I like that it has blown this match a little bit open, and you know, I'm here for all of it.
WWE stars are going to be part of Call of Duty 5.
They certainly are.
And then Kathy interviewed Sami Zayn, and he's like, look, I am taking Bron Breakker seriously, but wait, what's that commotion? And I hear some commotion like off screen. And he goes around the corner.
It's Madonna.
The Judgment Day have found Jey Uso, and they're beating him up. So Sami makes the save. He beats them up and lifts up Jey, and he's like, hey, you all cool? Later on, they set up a tag team match. That's the main event. Jey and Sami versus the Judgment Day.
Yes, I'm going to save this part until later on.
Cool. Otis and Strowman went to do some Green Bay Packers stuff. And then Xavier Woods...
thrilled.
Then Xavier Woods teamed with Otis and Tozawa to take on the Final Testament. Maxine on the outside, dressed as JK from Jamiroquai. Otis was very over with this crowd. I've written...
Well, of course he was his hometown boy.
I guess he's from around here then. And then Karrion Kross won. Later on in the show, Xavier Woods was like, I want a match with Karrion Kross. And I'm like, I'm ready for the story to get there now. Like, I was the lone voice in the room being like, I like this story.
Yeah, you were.
I was like, one guy. I am now ready for it to just get to a point. Because I've just watched now 5-6 weeks of them just having some matches. Sometimes they don't have matches. And then sometimes some of them win, sometimes the others win. Great, we got the poll up early.
Fine.
Great. I mean, yeah, just start going on now. Yeah, go for it now. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Not really.
Okay. Because then they had a follow-up segment after that, which is that Chad Gable came out.
I have more thoughts on this.
Yeah, and I was like, again, stories I'm waiting to get there. Woods just disappears from all of this because we come back from the ad break, and I think like a couple of video packages and stuff. And Gable's like, look, I want to help you guys because you've made Otis the leader now. Guess that wasn't a particularly good choice. Like, yeah, I mean, I suppose he is the one to pick, right? And what was the first decision made? To team with Xavier Woods. Well, good job. You're lost. So why don't you rejoin my team? Because the Wyatt Six are coming after us, but once they're done with me, they're going to be coming after you next. And then Otis says no. Tozawa and Maxine decide to stay with Otis. So Gable sicks the creeds on them. They all have a little brawl. And then the lights ka-chung out. The Wyatt Six appear on the stage. But from the other side of the ring, Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, gets in the ring. And he hits the Sister Abigail on Chad Gable. And that was the end of the segment. Thought that bit of it was very, very cool. But I feel like, for me personally, I've moved on from Chad Gable and Otis.
Right. I hadn't. I actually liked both very much. This was one of my favorite things on the show. Because I thought, while it has been a bit sort of get there, I think if you've looked at your calendar and you've seen you go into Otis's hometown, having that be the moment that for the first time Chad Gable actually physically starts putting the boots into Otis properly is a good, sympathetic place to do it, you know? A place where not only are the crowd sort of enamored of him, but he's also got a personal connection and whatever. You're humiliating him. And that is because that is what they are doing, and that is why they picked Chad Gable. And it was last week on the show that Bo Dallas at the time said, there you are. Mm-hmm. And that, I don't know if you watched the show last week, but that is what, for me, made me go, I get it. Mm. Here, we had Chad Gable and his jock boys beating up the nerdy kids. As Tozawa, who is more physically fit than I could ever hope to be in my life, but looks like a scrawny little boy with his little headband on. You know, sort of that weirdly beautiful nerd, Maxine. Do you know what I mean? By that's that trope.
Oh, I know. I am that person.
And Otis all getting sort of beaten up by the cool jock kids, and then they get saved by the Wyatt Six.
Spooky goths.
And he's that it's like the so I liked the segment of them actually just, now we're going to put the boots and we're going to completely separate this from each other. Job done. And then out come the Wyatts, and you kind of knew that it was coming, but I loved the reveal of it coming first from the crowd. Mm-hmm. The screams of the crowd as he came in the ring.
Yeah.
When you do get the reveal of him standing there, he looked full babyface for me.
Me too. It's because we've talked about this before, haven't we? It's weird for them to be sort of positioned as the baby faces when they, murdered people.
Right. But he is there with his big sort of he looked like the conscience of the company in a way. Says there you are again. This whole business of revel in who you are. What Uncle Howdy is actually doing is both allowing for the forgotten and the lost to be found and welcomed in, but also calling out those who pretend to be something that they're not, and then reveal themselves to be what Chad Gable has, which is a bully, right? And then he catches him, gets him in the Sister Abigail, delivers this picture-perfect Sister Abigail that I'm sure Bray would have been incredibly proud of. And with the elevation of the mask, the hair, which looks so much cooler than previous Uncle Howdy.
So much better. I was about to come on to the mask, but you finish.
And then, doing the pose and whatever. The idea that he is this, conscience really struck me while I was watching this. The pop for him arriving in the ring, the pop for the reveal, the pop for the Sister Abigail. This is working, and I know that I still caveat it with it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I had my sort of heart in my throat during the lead up to the reveal of the Wyatt Six, and then the week after, and then the week after. This is working for me, and I feel comfortable now saying that they are doing a fantastic job with it.
I think that the Wyatt Six stuff I think was really, really good. That's why I was I'm really into that stuff.
Just the other bit you were done.
The other bit I am kind of done with.
I understand that.
I've had my breakup angle with them, and then I've had 3 weeks of Otis saying no, I'm not going to rejoin your group, and it's I either crap or get off the pot. Are we going to have a match between these two because it's not happening at SummerSlam, which means that's the next pay-per-view cycle that we're going to be sort of delaying this on till. I'm kind of ready for this to move into its next chapter now. And I know we're moving it, but it feels like, the Wyatt Six is the next chapter. That feels like a chapter of a different story.
It does a bit. I almost feel like you'd have, for me, if it was my choice, I'd have a Wyatt so I'd have a Bo Chad match at SummerSlam that Bo wins, and then you go off and have your Alpha versus Alpha feud afterwards. We'll see, I suppose, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going on this, but I think that's also part of the problem. I would love to see them do a trios at SummerSlam. Of doing Chad and the Creeds versus the Wyatt Six, because then you can have like Rowan or Gacy or even Loomis, like, you know, do some work in there, which I think would be interesting. I suppose the problem we'd have, and I think I spoke to Ollie about this as well, like I think I did in 3 cams, might have been off mic. The problem is that you don't want to beat Chad and the Creeds because you've just put them together as a unit. You also can't beat the Wyatt Six. That's almost like a very bad match to book. Sort of first off, At least if you do Bo versus Chad, you can just beat Chad and it's fine.
That's what I mean. Yeah. That's why I wouldn't have it be a trios yet.
We were supposed to have Bronson Reed versus Pete Dunne. However, you can't have a DQ unless the match doesn't start.
There you go. They finally got one over on Luke Kelly.
They figured it out and they bested me this time round. Well done, Hunter. Because Sheamus came out and attacked Pete Dunne before the match started. Then he attacked Bronson Reed and stood tall. He challenged Pete Dunne to a match for some other time.
This one happened. This is another one where I don't really have any thoughts on it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, but
I think I didn't get a chance to say this last week. Yay, Pete Dunne. Yeah, like that's it. I'm glad that they are taking advantage of Tyler Bate being out injured, which sucks. But it's not like New Catch Republic were actually doing anything. So let's take advantage of this and actually make something of Pete Dunne, because you've had him under contract now for almost 10 years, and you have done exactly nothing with him.
And again, it speaks to his to Triple H's style, where he's then going like, okay, well, now I've got this opportunity. I do like this wrestler. I want to use him. We'll take the Brawling Brutes thing and the fact that we gave Butch a little crisis and use that in this storyline. It's like neat. It's that taking advantage of situations that I think he does do quite well.
We then had the Rhea Ripley segment we spoke about at the top of the show, and then we had Zelina Vega versus Zoey Stark. I don't know how Zelina Vega was medically cleared for this match, considering her arm was in a cast. And she used it as a weapon as well to get the win. The Party Girls and Lyra came down to brawl with Shayna and Sonya because they were doing distraction and interference. And then Vega used the arm brace as a weapon and hit Code Red for the win.
Yeah, again, another one with the length of time.
Given time.
That I liked. On the medically cleared thing, I know you're being a little bit facetious, but it's also one of those things where it's like consistency here and there is a tricky one. I liked that she did that. I liked that she used the brace.
It's a fun weapon.
To the point of earlier on when we were talking about Ilja looking strong or weak in defeat, Zoey took the pin here at the beginning of this, new trio of powerful lesbians. They need to continue looking strong. I think Zoey looks like she would not that it's like she looks strong in defeat, but it's like she got hit with a foreign object.
I get you. However, I think that this...
You hate women, it's fine. Okay, so
this loss hugely undermines the segment that comes to later.
Yeah, those segments should have been in the other way around.
100% they should have been the other way around.
Yes, I agree with that. But removing that from it in the moment when I'm and I'm just reviewing the show as I'm watching it go along, in this moment, I thought that was a good choice.
I'm glad that
because again, it's Zelina being like, oh, hang on, I could use this, and then Zelina begins her sort of
using the distraction of the Party Girls and everything. But this, and like we talked about this earlier, of like the idea of that there feels like the women's tag team division scene has actually got more teams now than it ever has before, and yet it doesn't feel like anyone's good enough for the belts. But then again, the belts don't really mean much at the moment because like no one feels like they're the Powerbuff Girls. So. What happened later is they had a segment, the Unholy Union, who I do keep forgetting are the tag champions, were being interviewed by Jackie, and they said, well, do you know what we do? We run this division. And I'm like, I've seen you wrestle once since you won these belts. Like, what division are you running here? You're just saying, that is just a word that you say. And then Sonya and crew walk up, and there's like, no, we run this division. I'm like, I just saw you lose. You're not running shit, mate. And then what did the Unholy Union say? You just lost, mate. And they're like, yeah, well, if we face you, it'll be a different story. And I was like, all right, try it then. Let's see if I care.
Yeah, it is.
I'm like, what are we doing with this division then?
It's more than a bit messy.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot. I think what this episode has shown is there is the component parts here for a really interesting women's division, singles and tag. The execution is still off.
Yeah. We then had the Xavier Woods promo where he challenged Cross to a match, and we got the announcement that Seth is going to be laying down his referee's rules for next week. Got a promo for that Mania documentary, then that Unholy Union promo that I spoke about earlier. We got a video promo for Gunther running down Damian Priest, and then our main event was Jey Uso and Sami Zayn taking on the Judgment Day. Crikey, you want to talk about a hot crowd with some baby faces right here, because this match is standard WWE tag match. Like, you can close your eyes and see this tag match play out, because a lot of WWE tag matches are all the same, particularly when you're doing a double hot tag. So you can close your eyes and just let this play out in your head. But it's one of those matches where that doesn't matter, because it's elevated. When people used to talk about like the real like dirge of the WWE tag team division, sort of like, 2005 to 20, more or less 2018, really, where you were just having these standard tag matches and no one cared. It's because they didn't have people who were over in them. Now you can do the standard tag match and people are into the stars. So Sami Zayn gets the hot tag, the place goes ballistic. Sami Zayn gets worked over, the crowd are cheering for Sami Zayn to get back because they want to see Jey Uso tag in. Jey Uso gets the hot tag, the place goes ballistic because Jey Uso runs wild. And then you rinse and repeat this, and then everyone just hits their big moves and you go to the finish. And it was fantastic. 4 very good wrestlers doing very, very good wrestling, elevated by an insanely hot crowd who wanted to see Sami Zayn and Jey Uso tagging together and beating the baddies. What an absolute triumphant win this was as a main event.
Yeah, big time. Everything from, 3 hours is a long time to watch a TV show, when you're also, thinking about it on this level. But it's a long time to watch a TV show when you're just mulling about your house of an evening on a Monday night. When you see a crowd screaming their head off and through it bursts Sami and Jey, you lean forward. Then they pick up those little foam fingers, and that makes me go, maybe if I was there, I probably would buy one of those foam fingers, actually.
Yeah. The fun foam fingers.
And then they do their little handshake with each other they've not done in ages, the bloodline handshake. And I'm like, right, everything else goes away. I'm so in, and I'm really excited. I'm ready. I'm energized. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic entrance. And then the match was just real good. Obviously, because look at the 4 people that were in it, but really good, really breathless near falls, good choices of, we're going to have you, Jey, be coup de grace, moonsault, all the rest of it. That's where we get our pinfall. But then also we've got the 1D pops me out of my skin because I'm like, I haven't seen it in ages. And then you get the haluva kick splash combo. And that's when I go, put the tag belts on them. And that's when I remember what's coming up on Friday SmackDown.
Is the tag titles thing, yeah.
The tag title gauntlet, wherein I think the other tag belts should go on Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga. And that night, I'm like, oh, the bloodline's back together. And we've got tag belts on either side of the bloodline. And I know all the belts being in the bloodline is maybe a bit of a mistake. But
I think it's what Rikishi wants.
It's absolutely what Rikishi... Well, no, Rikishi wants all the belts on Jey Uso specifically. Jey Uso is tag team champion with Jey Uso. No one else. But I'm like, you've really, really smartly brought Sami and Jey back together at potentially the most dynamite time you could, if we are impending to get a Roman return. Because Sami and Jey, we always thought it was going to be the most heartbreaking thing in the world when Jimmy turned on Sami. We talked about this a lot back in 2022. Actually, it turned out the most heartbreaking thing in the world was Jey Uso being really sad that Sami turned on the bloodline.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought about that in a million years. These two are so special together, and they have great chemistry as a tag team. By having them come back together with Jey Uso being attacked, and Sami just sort of hears it while he's in the middle of his interview, and he's got other things on his mind. He's got Bron Breaker as well, but hang on, that's my mate. He's a good guy. He's shown through the program with Chad Gable, helping Alpha Academy extricate themselves and know their own worth. He's just a good guy. But he's always going to be there for Jey, and he was sort of trying to help Jey extricate himself from that bad situation, bringing them back together and showing us this match and showing us the bloodline hand claps, and I really want it, mate. Well, I really want the 2 sets of tag belts on either side of the show.
It's interesting that you say that, because I did not think about, they could run together as a tag now on TV. Because I was so focused on Sami winning with Bron, I looked at this as a one-night only thing. Right. This was like, we need a main event for this show. Sami saves Jey, and then I never looked at it as like, and this is how they get back together. And I think it's partly because, like, well, I saw them tag a lot, like last year.
Sami and Jey.
Yeah, when it was like
been apart.
When it was like, you know, it was a combination of Sami, Kevin, Jey, and Cody feuding with the Judgment Day.
Yeah,
that's the other thing I would say. Like my big like praising of this match is I was sick of seeing Sami Zayn taking on the Judgment Day.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
So sick of Jey Uso fighting the Judgment Day, and yet here they are, and I'm like, great,
more, put the belts on him,
do it again.
But like, which is so funny. But that's absence makes the heart grow fonder. And over the past few months, especially, we've had Sami over in the Intercontinental title scene, Jey being main event Jey Uso, going for Money in the Bank, doing his own little thing. Let me miss you. That's my big thing. Let me miss you. Go away so that when you come back, Randy Orton's one of my favorite wrestlers. If you'd have told me that in the year of our Lord 2017, I'd been like, what are you on about? Yeah. But like, here we are, because he went away and I realized how much I missed him, and he came back with a fresh energy. An off season, turns out, quite a good thing. I feel like, what do you do else with them? Right, I think it's a good time for the Intercontinental title to go back on, onto Bron Breakker.
And to go into the banger division.
I don't know that I want to necessarily see Sami go immediately into the world title picture. I think Jey's had his world title moment. I don't think he goes there. But I do think what could be incredible, compelling television is Sami and Jey as a tag team with a returning Roman while swimming on the blue brand is Bloodline 2.0. I think it's a really smart and elegant way of bringing it together.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I looked at this as a one night only thing without kind of looking to the future of like, well, that is probably the War Games match, isn't it? Which is just like Bloodline 2.0 versus the original Bloodline. And this is actually a very nice way for kind of Sami to incorporate himself back into that story and sort of like set himself up to be incorporated back into that story. So I hadn't seen it from that point of view, but that's a really astute way to kind of look at things. Whether about putting the tag belts on them, I don't know if because we've just put them on Finn and JD.
So that's to bring in what I said earlier on in the show. That's my Finn screws Rhea out of the belt at SummerSlam, so Rhea screws them out of the belt at the Raw after SummerSlam or whatever. Like,
because they do have a win over the tag champs now. So that
exactly.
They did say that on commentary. They pinned the tag champions. So in theory, in Austin theory, that should set them up for a tag team title match.
So you could use that to set Jey and Sami off to do their own thing.
Yep.
And you could even, if you wanted to bring in the Creeds, because you've got Sami and Chad's sort of history, and that's a different angle. You could then allow, if Rhea gets involved and that's how they lose the belts, then the Judgment Day have to go off over there. It's a very neat way of doing it if you want to go with that, Trips. I'm into it. I like it a lot. And also the like I said, the crowd surrounding them as they come out.
Great.
I want to be in that gang. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So good.
And
that's like the best advertisement.
Yeah. Go to a show and this could happen.
Well, that's it. We used to talk about Too Cool in the Attitude Era. It's like every single episode of Raw had Too Cool in some capacity, whether that is Scotty doing a singles match, or Grandmaster Sexay doing a single match, or a tag, or it's Rikishi doing a singles match, or whatever it is. It's a 2-minute match, usually ends in DQ. Steve Blackman's probably there, but it doesn't actually matter what the match is. It's because they then do the dance, and everyone loves them to do the dance. And there's like, if you buy tickets because it's coming to your town next week, you can go see them do the dance. So if Jey Uso comes out every single week, like, they're in town next week, you can be part of Jey Uso doing
and like,
the eating.
We're talking about having a holiday to New York in October, and one of the first things I thought was, I wonder if they're nearby. Like, let's see what there's a show in America.
Is there?
There's a SmackDown not in the weeks that I'm looking, which is really annoying. But if we went a little bit, I could hop over to Pennsylvania because there's going to be a show there. But like, it's one of those things where we're now in this era where I'm like, that's top of my priority. If I go on a big holiday to the city that never sleeps, is WWE in town. That's a great sign of what they've achieved, and I know we're still in that kind of headspace of the calendar is a period of nothing really doing, and then we're on the road to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
we're on the road to War Games, which then leads us on the road to the Royal Rumble, which then puts us on the road to we've now got several different chapters.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, like, I think
and I'm into it.
Yeah, we talked about this before on the podcast. But we are now out of that post-Mania slump. Like, the post-Mania slump is a real thing, but I feel like this is the first time that the company's actually it had its slump. You know, its traditional slump. But as opposed to just waiting until sort of like November to start the road to the Royal Rumble and just like riding the slump, it's like, well, football season's now over, so let's start the build to SummerSlam.
Yeah.
And then use SummerSlam to crest over into Survivor Series that can take us on to Royal Rumble, that can take us on to WrestleMania.
And at some point, a crest
and it will crash back down, because it will then go back into the post-Mania lull, fighting against football, not really trying. And then once football season's over, great, now we can start trying again. Now we'll actually put some effort in, and we'll start the build to SummerSlam, and we'll just ride this roller coaster till the end of time, probably.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Well, I enjoyed this episode of Raw.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was a very, very good time. We got some shout-outs here for our Patreon Pledgehammers. Head on over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk to get loads of cool exclusive content. Coming up tomorrow, I think we're going to put this out. The 7th and final episode of our Breakup of the Shield story we've been doing on the Patreon podcast on WrestleTalk Extra. Ollie and I reviewed Hell in a Cell 2014. We'd recorded it yesterday, so that should be going out tomorrow. That is the 7th and final chapter of our Breakup of the Shield. We've chronicled pretty much all of 2014, really. And in fact, there's only one show missing from the archives covering 2014. Oh, there's a couple, because we didn't do Battleground or Night of Champions, because those had angles rather than matches. So go and check that out over there. We had a lot of fun doing it. We also announced what our next phase is going to be of WrestleTalk Extra, what our next story arc we're going to do is, and it's one that I'm really, really excited for. It's a shorter one. It's a 5-episode run, but I'm really, really excited about it.
So that's a teaser.
But if you are one of our $25 and above Patreon Pledgehammers, you get your name right out on the show, like these fine folks: Ross, Pooper, Scooper, Cooper,
Rue the Day, Rory O'Brien, Kelly.
Enter Sam, man, Sam the Phoenix.
The man with the scoops, Sean.
The movie Luke has never seen, Zelina.
The Pharaoh, Stephen Mazzaferro.
The incredible Tarzo.
Keep rolling, the Rick Pesh.
Keep rolling. Tony Jabroni.
Trev Dog 316.
Commentator of the Century, Vince Phillips.
And the King of Hearts, Vincent Valen.
Oh, lovely, lovely stuff. Thank you all so much for being wonderful Patreon Pledgehammers. Let's get into the rest of your Ultra Chats. Geek of Arabia here said, great show overall. Shame Ilja got knocked the F out in that last bump, because it was a hell of a match. It was planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by feeling awkward. It did have a moment where I was like, was that right? Especially because coming off the heels of Sky Blue and her injury, there was a little part of me that was like, I hope he's fine. Like, and that's why I think I don't like ref stoppages.
Sami Jey versus the Judgment Day was also rad. Most of the matches and promos hit home. Not sure about the Nikki Cross segment. First Wyatt segment to do nothing for me. Well, I think that's because it had no substance to it.
Yeah, I wanted
screaming.
I got no insight into Nikki Cross's experience.
Bingo. Josh here said, with Seth as ref, it'll probably be a callback to SummerSlam 97. Drew will get in Seth's face. Seth will accidentally hit Punk and cost him the win. Sets up a Hell in a Cell match at, fittingly, Bad Blood between Punk and Rollins, or a triple threat with Drew. Aaron Hanrahan here said, I just want Drew versus Punk. Why add Seth to the match as referee? Look, I'm still excited for the match.
Bless you.
Got another one.
Bless you.
Thank you. Look, I'm still excited for the match, but if it's like a fast count or something, I really don't want that. I'll let it play out. It should obviously be a Hell in a Cell since it's the first match.
Did you see my very funny tweet about Jade and Bianca?
I don't go on Twitter.
They were on Hot Ones versus, and I said I just sort of saved that stipulation for the second or third in the trilogy.
That's very funny.
That is
very good insight. If Twitter was more like you, I'd probably be more on it. James here said, so glad Bo is using Sister Abigail. Got the pop it deserved. Still wonder if Alexa Bliss will return associated with the Wyatts or be separate from them. The last time we saw her was Uncle Howdy asking her if she feels in control. What do you think? I've got to assume that Alexa's going to come back and be part of this.
Well, of course, like I forgot how many times the Wyatt logo popped up behind her while she was getting ready for that Royal Rumble match against Bianca. So You would think that if she wanted to be involved, and I imagine she would, because she talks about how much she loved working with Wyndham Rotunda. But let's let her get back to fitness first.
Well, she's doing, like, she posted videos about doing moves.
Twisted Bliss, yeah, that's what I mean. Let her get there, and then we can stop.
Raf42 said, I got literal goosebumps when Howdy did the Sister Abigail. His body language was near identical to Bray's. For a split second, it felt like he was there. Unrelated, immediately after that segment, Buddy Matthews tweeted a Stitch licking a window gif. Buddy and Rhea obviously married. Mr. Toff has been a member for 18 months in a row. Said, I feel like Raw has outperformed SmackDown this week with CM Punk, Drew, Seth, Wyatt, Gable, J-Day, Liv, Priest, Gunther. It was a great show. I completely agree. Like, I think Raw is a much better show than SmackDown is at the moment.
It's certainly the one that I look forward to the most.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Power Packers 90 has been a member for 35 months in a row. I'm assuming you really enjoyed all the Green Bay stuff. Said, hey guys, not a fan of Liv turning around to show her butt and talking about what men want. Did someone call in a favor?
I know what you mean. It certainly felt like but also, again, this is what I'm talking about, where the hypocrisy of Liv Morgan, and like it needs to be more explicit that she's like toying with them, kind of. It was weird. Like I liked it, but it was weird.
The other side of it is, as well, is women outwardly putting out their sexuality is not a sign of just like, hey, some men up top have told them that they should do that.
Yeah,
it's more a case of like this feels kind of within her character.
There's certainly that's a good distinction. There certainly has been in this company, even recently, an era where whether you like it or not, you're doing it. And not just women specifically. You know, Jinder Mahal has talked recently about doing a promo with racist undertones that he didn't want to be a part of. Shelton Benjamin has mentioned the same. So there was very much a you can't say no thing. Liv has spoken about how much she enjoys going to work and being part of this story, and there very much is a contribution from her. It sounds like the creative process is much more open. There's also nuanced conversations around women in position of power and showcasing their sexuality versus being being sexual and being sexualized. That is the distinction.
100%. Yeah. So like you owning the fact that you have got a nice butt.
Yeah.
Is an empowering thing, as opposed to someone being like, do you know whose ass is nice? It's yours. Now go out there and show it to all of these fans.
Yeah, and it is, but it's not a bad thing that you go, oh, am I a bit uncomfortable about this?
Absolutely. That's good. I mean, we are all learning as a people.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good thing for us to. I think these are good conversations for us to have as well. Space Viking here said, assuming that they want Liv to have a decent run with the belt, my prediction is that Dominik accidentally gives Liv the win and officially turns on Rhea at Bad Blood in a ladder match.
You desperately want this ladder match,
don't you? Man, if you stretch this story out, like even more than that, like if you do an accidental Dom cost Rhea at SummerSlam, just so you can, I'll be like, guys, get there. Space Viking continues, you convinced me that Finn and Liv might be the play, but I've been burned on a Finn push way too much. Still not over not giving him the title last SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, but he was Trips' boy. He even dragged him back down to NXT so that he could be there for Black and Gold. So
Jay says, hey guys, I was at the show yesterday, probably one of the better live crowds we've had here in hello, Wisconsin. Do you think if we get Chad Gable and Uncle Howdy at SummerSlam, do you think we'll get the full Code Orange song or just the one piano note?
I want the full song. I think it's a beautiful song, and I think it would be so special.
Roach here says, you mentioned that Liv barely even defended her title. At least she defends it, whereas the US title is very much AWOL at this point. Whatever happened to having a fighting champion, or is it just because the dickhead has a prime sponsorship? By the way, it's a NAF drink.
We had this conversation yesterday on the show, which is that you've got to make it, when you're booking and you've got opportunities to grow your company or whatever, there's a point where, putting the belt on Logan Paul actually is a really smart choice for us.
Makes sense to me.
But you've got to then balance that out with, is it detrimental to our product?
Yeah.
And then at this point, I think the benefits are now outweighed by the negatives.
Well, I think that's only because that works as a short-term thing.
Right.
And him having it since November is where the problem is.
Yeah.
Like it's the Triple H era of like, don't like short runs, so everyone gets to have it for 6-7 months. Mm-hmm. When you do that on someone who is only there a handful of times, that's when it becomes...
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's when it becomes a detriment. I Make Beat says, afternoon, handsome chaps. Sprained my ankle. At least I can still watch WrestleTalk while it heals. Raw was great. Really felt like a variety show. Flew by. Bo hitting Sister Abigail was spectacular. Luke, that shirt could give Ethan Page a run for his money. It's one of my better shirts, actually. Will here says, he's been a member for 11 months, said, Sami and Jey teaming up feels like a tease for them joining the OG bloodline, which is what you were saying. Christopher has been a member for 20 months in a row, said, hello, I lost my mum 3 days ago. She was 75. I used to remember her with happy memories. Thanks for the distraction. All you need is love. Well, love to you, but I'm very sorry to hear that. Everyone, please give some love to Chris in the chat, please. He's been a long time viewer, and obviously a 20-month member, but that is a name that we have seen around these parts for a long, long time, as everyone Kenobi would say. So please give Chris some love in the chat.
All the love to you.
Daniel has become a brand new member. Welcome to the party, pal. Peter here said, bit off topic. I still can't get around my head that Dan dressed on Survival Series like he's a member of Electric Callboy, but still not listened to them on Monday Night Wars when it's the perfect band to get you hyped up. Come on, Dan, do it.
I want to say that I'll do it, but I can't. I'm not going to promise I'm going to remember that. But thanks for the notif.
Yeah, that's the problem there, Peter, is that we're not recording that for another week.
Yeah,
it's
next week.
It's next week we're recording it. Man,
and I've got to head like a sieve.
We've had a dreadful time with Monday Night War the last 2 months or so. We should have been done with this ages ago, but we had a period of time. People have heard about us in the booking podcast. We didn't actually. They won't have done that yet because that's not coming out until next week. We had a stretch where we didn't record an episode for about 7 weeks
because of an issue.
We had some technical issues. We couldn't record an episode for 7 weeks.
Yeah,
and we come out to it, I was like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah,
and then once that 7 week had come out and finished and we recorded an episode, we then didn't record for another 2 weeks, and then we did those 2 episodes, and now we're recording for another 3 weeks, which ends next week when we're doing the final 2 episodes of this series run. But what it means, long way to get to this, is when you say like, hey, you should listen to this band when you next record. Buddy, these records are so sporadic. We may not remember these things. Starbucks here said, hello lads, couple of things. Firstly, this SummerSlam card is large. I see why 2 nights is an idea.
Just done that first one very quickly. It's not.
It's 7 matches.
It's actually the perfect length.
It's only 7 matches. This is actually the length I've been calling for.
I'd add one more. It's just really funny that we're at a point where anything longer than 5 matches is considered large.
Yeah. Secondly, is that defending the championship? And am I dumb but jam in the jar? What happened? Love you guys. Keep on jamming. Part of it is because we don't do live reactions anymore. Though we are having a SummerSlam party.
Hello.
And, so our moderators will be spamming the link for that shortly. But we are doing a SummerSlam live party. We're partnering up with Hooked on Wrestling again. So we will be doing live reactions for SummerSlam. So there will be those. But we didn't do Jam in the Jar this year because, well, there's no live reactions, which means that there's no live reactions for someone to win it, and then there's therefore no live reactions for someone to jam it in either. So we're still trying to work out what live reactions kind of look like. That's something we're going to be addressing kind of when we get into 2025, when we get into the Netflix era, because we're working on some things that we can't announce and talk about yet. So stay tuned. We'll have an answer for you soon.
Also, the Ultimate Babyface won the belt, so like we should leave it with Sat.
Kind of, yeah. Like if Sat, if Sat ends up being the last champion, like I'm kind of fine with that.
Yeah.
Like he's the perfect guy for it to.
If that's true, can I just take the belt home for?
It'll probably become part of the set. We'll replace the old one and put the new one
home with me. I did good things with that belt.
UDD says Joey and Rachel was a fantastic couple. Dan just hates love.
I'll fight you. It was a dreadful idea, and that's why they thought so too, and that's why it only lasted 3 episodes. Now, move on.
Real Double J here said 13-year-old Dan fancy booking himself into shoot disappointment with Wicked is one of the cutest things I've heard today, and I've got a new puppy. Never change, Dan. Your analogies are just as crucial to Raw reviews as Luke's curries. Much love to you.
I did still like Wicked. I expected a different scene. Like
Jimmy G has been a member for 34 months in a row. Said, looking forward to the watch party. Would be grand to see with you guys. With Dom, I'm sensing a massive turn on Rhea next week. Ooh. Imagine the nuclear heat. I think if it happens, it's happening at SummerSlam, but maybe that's just me. Powertron, one on YouTube here, said, thanks for accompanying me on the first leg of my journey to visit my hometown of Toronto. SummerSlam will be taking place on my birthday weekend, so I'm hoping for a great weekend of wrestling.
Happy birthday in advance.
Rafael Garcia said, this is $5 to hear Luke say in his live impression, respect my authority.
God, that was Terry. Like this, I don't know what you're doing.
No, if it was Terry would come in and she would say, respect my authority. Which is also a flawless Terry impersonation. And Dylan here said, hey guys, it's technically my birthday over there. What's something significant that's happened on your birthday? In 2006, the Punjabi prison match debuted on my birthday at the Great American Bash.
Thomas à Becket was murdered in the cathedral in 1206.
Let's have a look. What happened?
Carrie Fisher died.
I think she did die on my birthday. Oh no, she died on your birthday, right?
Yeah, or the day. I think it might have been the day before my birthday.
Yeah. The polar exploration was Norwegian explorer Roland Amundsen, who left Norway for Antarctica in June 1910, and on this day in 1911 became the first person to reach the South Pole.
Great.
There you go. So I've got a South Pole thing.
Yeah, it was Thomas à Becket, the most famous thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a look here.
No, the US annexation of Texas was approved.
It's just the
you're welcome, Texas.
I'll go to the 1990s because that's an interesting decade. It's where all the best stuff happened. It's just birthdays.
Oh my god, everyone famous dies on my birthday. Pele died.
Let's have a look. Who died around my birthday? in the last few years? No one interesting. I guess the most interesting thing on my birthday is my birthday.
Do you know a famous person who shares your birthday?
Peter O'Toole.
Because mine is Jude Law. Jude Law and I have the same birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know who I share a birthday with.
Let's end the show.
But this is such good content.
I disagree. I'm cold.
Go turn it off then, you
No!
big baby. Right. Anyway, I'm going to end the poll here. We have our results. 77% thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, 20%. That sounds about right, actually.
Yeah. That's a few more in the middle than I thought, but yeah.
Yeah. Raph here said, Luke sounds like Cartman, not Liv. That's the joke, bud. Anyway, that's the end of the show.
No, the thing is, you sounded like Cartman when you were trying to do a legitimate Liv Morgan impression.
It's because I think that sometimes she has the cadence of the Cartman. Just saying.
Wait, cadence of the Cartman? Aren't they the party girls? This has been the Raw Podcast. I'm Dan Layton. Thanks for...